everyone, my name is Della Phillips. I'm an artist, as well as I'm known as the Bicycle Lady. How you doing today? I'm doing great. Now, YouTube says I'm going to have to build subscribers, and I really would like to do that, but I'm going to need your help. So if you find this video helpful, informative, or just plain entertaining, please subscribe. There's no charge. Nobody's going to contact you further to try to sell you anything. It's free of charge, so please subscribe. I really would appreciate it. It really helped me out a lot. So I'm going to thank you in advance for becoming a subscriber and also for watching this video. This video is going to be covering additional testing with the watercolor markers on various type of papers. Now, prior videos, I tested the markers on sketchbooks to see how they would perform with the various brands of sketchbooks I had access to or personally owned. Now I'm going to be using different types of brands of paper. And you might say, why'd you go all this problem? Why use watercolor markers? Couldn't it be easier just to use watercolor itself or the field box? And yes, I would say you would be right in many ways. However, I don't know about where you're at, but one of the places I go and want to go further and do sketching and so forth has now imposed a rule that you can no longer use wet media or wet artist media within their botanical gardens or park. And that's in result to some mishaps and misunderstandings and some unfortunate incidents that has occurred recently, in which with all the new people getting into urban sketching and other things, things have happened where if they were in watercolor, they had contaminated dirty water from washing out your brush, dumped or maybe accidentally spilled, as well as some people with acrylic, oils, and some of the other wet artist media. So they have put a total ban on that and saying you can only use dry media. So far they're allowing markers, and I'm looking to use the watercolor markers but still have all the variability on how I can apply the marker to the paper and work with the marker and the color. So that's the reason why I'm doing this testing, and I hope that also will help you out as well. I'm actually discovering I like the marker and may even would like to use it in any case, whether or not watercolor is banned from being used in that area or not. So let's get to testing. So I have my markers here. I did add one marker that I found. I forgot I had it. It came from the Try It box, and I had a video on that some time ago. And so here's a scrap of watercolor paper, and I want to show you the three main ways watercolor markers can be used in watercolor paper, as long as you have that option. Not all paper will give you that option, and I want all ways. So let me grab a marker here. Now let me get this Cad red, and let me use that to show you the three main ways of doing this. First way, as we've been testing, is direct application. That's where you put marks or solid onto a piece of paper, and then you bring in your water with your brush, or if you're in where the botanical garden that bans the water and brush, you can use one of these type of brushes, which has the water here and there's no chance of spilling, which they will accept. Now if you used a regular cup with water in it, that could get you walked out of the park or botanical garden, because that'd be a risk of spillage and so forth. And the reason why they're doing this is because of the impact that was made from some of the maybe inadvertent dumping from not being fully aware, as well as other things. Okay, so you can blend it out, and many times get it fully blended so there's no mark left and so forth, depending on the paper. So that's what I want to be able to do. It's like putting in a wash, but you're using the paper and mixing everything on the paper and blending it out on the paper. Now the next way that you can do it is by taking your brush, have it damp, and I'm not going to put it to the brush end because I'm using that real soon. So I'm going to put it here on the bullet, and you could use either one. The reason why I'm using this here because it does take some time after you pick up color off the tip. Keep, this is moist, and then applying it onto the paper this way. Now you can also risk of diluting this out. You have to give this a couple minutes to disperse and get the color strengthened back up again when you do that. So that is also one of the reasons why I don't like to use it that much. Another option would be to palette. You can use a little plastic palette or just a little scrap of Yupo, the plastic paper, or whatever you have. And essentially what you take your marker, you put it down, and then you pick it up with a brush, and then you can apply the color that way. Now, oftentimes, many times this could be less strong than direct applying, but in this case I had a lot of water. Either way, the thing is, I want to have all three options available to me because you can get different effects from using the different techniques. And that's the reason why it's so important to me. I have paper where I can just take, like I did here, take the marker and be able to blend it out. And even blend it to the point where there's no lines or you cannot see where the color was applied to the paper. Not all paper does that, as you've seen when I did the testing with the sketchbooks. So let's get started. That's the reason why it's important to me to have this option in front of me, as well as you now have seen the three main ways of applying color using a watercolor marker. The papers I'm going to be testing today with the watercolor markers are these papers. Now, by no means is this all watercolor samples and papers I have to test. I'm breaking up the video into 2, maybe 3 videos. I'm going to try to do it within 2, so it won't get too long. The papers I'm going to be testing today will be these 2 blocks, which is the Fluid 100 100% cotton cold press, and the Faber-Castell Artistico 100% extra white. I don't have a hot press. It would be better on the tips if you only used hot press. This is what I have, but I'm going to take it easy with it and we'll see if it works. If it works and it passes the test where I can do the direct application and totally blend it out without leaving any type of residual marker where I applied the color, then I'll invest in some hot press. I also have the Arches hot press. I have a pad of that, so I got a small sample of that there. I also have the Lana Aquiel a cold press. I didn't have access to a hot press. And then I have the Saunders Waterford, which is cold press, but that cold press does have a bit of a texture, but not that bad. And then I have the Kilimanjaro Original cold press. Now I have requested some additional samples, and when I get that in, I'll do that testing. Hopefully it will be before I complete my next video. If not, it will be in an update. Alright, so let's get started testing. I'll put off these other papers, get them out of the way to the side. And the first paper we're going to be testing, as you can see, is the Arches hot press. I'm going to try to remember to go in the same order as before, which I believe was the Scarlet with the Faber-Castell, then the Sepia, I believe, and then the blue, the cadmium red, the rose, the hooker, and then we'll add in the gray. Alright. Okay, I'm going to lay down some color, just like before. a little bit of space. I'm going to put this little line over to the side. And let's go ahead and get the brush damp. Tap it on a piece of paper towel. And that's pretty good. Does seem to be... it will blend out. I'm saying it does blend out. Pretty much, yeah. So as you work the wash, that looks like it does pretty good. Alright, I got a little bit of water on it. Let's get that up. The next color is the infamous Sepia. Let's see here. Put the mark over there. Okay. It does blend. Pretty much it blends out. I've seen it from others using it where it blended totally out. Let's try something. Maybe I got the top side and back side different. Let's try it this way and see if there's a difference there. Just kind of experimenting. Actually, I think I did. That seemed to go into solution much better. There is oftentimes a slightly difference between the two sides of a paper. It could be very minor, but that could be it. We'll find out with the sepia. I may even have to test the cold press. It's pretty much going all into solution there. A little bit of mark. So I think it is. I got the side switched. There we go. Let's get on with the next. Now, I'll probably be speeding this up shortly because I don't think you may want to watch this all in real time. I'll double speed it. But of course you can always change the speed setting on your playback on YouTube. But we'll alter the audio. I think you know what I'm doing here. Okay, let's try the next. Green. Sorry for that little flub. This is actually doing pretty good. I was just a little bit disappointed with a slight hazing of the lines there. I think I didn't mix this long enough there, but I'm going to have to check this out on cold press as well, I think. Here's the gray. It does a good job going to solution. Alright, so that's going to be good for value studies and the like. Alright, I'm going to put this over to the side, up here. And evidently, the arch is hot press. The first paper sample I'm going to be testing after the arches is the Lana Aqua L. It's made by Lana Papers. It's a beautiful paper. It has a fine cold press texture. It's 140 pounds. It's 100% cotton. Basically, I'm only testing 100% cotton now because I found when I tested the journals, the cellulose papers essentially failed. Now, I've already tested the Scarlet Red Deep from Faber-Castell and the Sepia from Winsor Newton. And you see the Sepia is notorious for not blending out or hard to blend out. But it went into solution and blended out totally with no lines. It's even back rubbing now into the Prussian blue swatch. Now I've just finished up the Cadmium Red, applied the rose, blending that out as well. There's a little bit of line, but I'll blend it out a little bit more. This paper was absolutely beautiful. Absolutely. I was pleasantly surprised. Now, I was just checking the name, making sure I remember correctly that the green is a Hooker's Green Dark from Winsor Newton. It was. And now the gray, I believe it's cold gray too. You can check below in my description. I'll have all the markers listed as usual. So I put the lines to the side, so I'm going to let those sit and dry for 20 minutes, as with the arches sample, and we'll come back and see if they can blend after that. This piece of paper, or sample paper, is the Saunders Waterford. It is a beautiful paper. It has a very fine cold press texture to it, which many times I like. It is 100% cotton. There is a slight haze line. You'll see that even more prominently when it dries. So let's go ahead and see how some of the other colors. This is the Prussian blue. And then there you can definitely see there's a little bit of an application line left after blending. Cadmium red hue from... Oops, I accidentally blended that mark for later, so I put another one down. Here's the rose. You can still see that there is a slight ghosting or a haze of a direct application of the color lines on this. Although it could be very manageable if this is all you had to work with, it's still a wonderful, beautiful paper to work with. But not so much with markers. I would say it would be a possibility, but actually it's a fail. It's manageable if that's all you had to work on, but I'm going to say it's a fail. If you have options, I would go with, like the Lana Aqua L right now. I also know from testing with the journals, the Strathmore works very, very well as well. And we'll see how some of these other papers work. Now, this is the Kilimanjaro original, and it's 140 pound, 100% cotton. And if you know anything about some of the watercolor papers, you know this is the Cheap Joe store brand. It is a beautiful paper. It's 100% cotton. The texture is a cold press, but is slightly rougher than the Saunders Waterford. You are seeing a little bit of ghosting of the lines already. In actuality, the performance with the markers, leaving a little bit of a ghosted or a hazy color application line, is very similar to the Saunders Waterford. The performance is very similar. So let's go ahead and see how it does with the rest of the colors. That's rose, and you can see there is a little bit of application line left. I tried again with a little bit less water. It got a little bit better, but still there. Here's the Hooker's Green Dark. And now the Faber-Castell Gray. So all in all, like the Saunders Waterford, it's a possibility, but really it's a fail. Now I'm going to be testing the block of Fluid 100. It is 100% cotton, 140-pound cold press, and you can see right off the bat with the Faber-Castell Scarlet Red Deep, it does show an application line. You can see even more prominently with the Sepia. It's just not blending out. It soaks in quite quickly. I can tell right now this is a fail. It is still nice watercolor paper to work on, and sometimes you can find a decent sale on it. But for markers, I'm going to say stay away from it. It is an absolute fail when it comes to direct application. The other two ways of applying it, from paletting it or taking it off the tip with a brush, yeah, it works well with that, but not for this. Now, my next block is the Fabriano Artistico Extra White Cold Press. It is 140 pounds. It has a texture that is a little bit rougher, not very much, than the Saunders Waterford or the Lana Aquarelle. It's very close to that, but it's beautiful paper. And you can see the blending. I have a background down into the sepia that it can blend out to where there's absolutely no lines. And it's quick. You don't have to really scrub at it either. So this is beautiful paper to work on. I was told that would probably be the case, but seeing it is believing in it. Now here's the cadmium red hue. And now the rose. Cleaned the brush. Look at that. It's just gorgeous. Just gorgeous. It was fun to work on as the Lana Aquarelle, and when I worked on the Stratford before with the travel book. And the Hooker's Green Dark. And finally the Faber-Castell Gray. Now all these papers will sit for 20 minutes to dry, and then I'll come back and do the testing and try to see if I can get that line I put off to the side to go into solution. First, here's the Arche, or Arches, however you want to pronounce it. This is the hot press. Frankly, I was disappointed with this. I was told the Arches would perform beautifully, but then again, the person who told me that normally works on cold press and doesn't use the markers that much. This being hot press, I thought it would be just the same. I mean, same brand and everything. However, I may have to test that further and get a piece of cold press to test it. Right now, here's the Lana Aquarelle. You'll see a little bit going into solution, maybe up to half. Still leaves a defined line there, and that could be a useful option in watercolor where you need to leave a defined line and blend out behind it. So that would be good for that type of option. But definitely, this paper is an absolute beautiful to work on and a winner. Now, here's the Saunders Waterford. It is beautiful to work on with watercolor. That's the reason why it's the select paper of the Royal Watercolor Society. In markers, it is marginal. It does, on the lines it blends somewhat. I was surprised it didn't blend more with the Scarlet Red Deep as the first one. But overall, I could say it's a possibility. It's manageable, but it failed. Now, here is the Kilimanjaro. And as before, it is actually performing very similar to the Saunders Waterford. Beautiful paper to work on. It's a fail for the marker. Now here's a Fluid 100. I've already said this is a fail. To be consistent, I am still trying to dilute out all the lines, just like I did with all the other papers. So that is a definite fail. Now here's the Fabriano Artistico. Nice. At least half or more of the line on the Scarlet Red Deep went into solution. Not so much in the sepia. Definitely the Prussian blue. Now the cadmium red went well into solution. And also the Hooker green, although you can still see a slight line there. And that is absolutely beautiful. Alright, I let everything dry. And I thought we'd review everything. Now I did go back and retest the Arche hot press. Now this is my padded cold press. I'll show you the results on that. But I did take another part sheet of the Arche cold press that's in a pad, and redid the same testing on the markers. Basically, it came out pretty close to the same, just a slight difference on one or two of them. I'm going to say at best it's a marginal no pass. It's not horrible. It's very manageable. So I got to thinking, I was always under the assumption that if it works on cold press or the hot press of a particular brand, it should be equal either cold press or hot press. I said, let's test this. So I got out my pad of the Arches cold press. And I tested it. This is the hot press. And it did fantastic, just like I was told by a person who uses the markers with the Arch cold press. Just a hint of a line here, but that could have been me. Basically, it all went into solution very well. Not very nice. So, I'm going to say this is essentially a pass. This is essentially a marginal no pass on the Arch. Alright, let's look at the results of the other papers. Now, the next paper we tested together was the Lana paper, the Lana Aquarelle. Fantastic. This is a cold press paper. Never used her hot press. May have to get a sample of that, or maybe a friend would have that and try that out. But this is absolutely fantastic. It bled into there. That's the reason why it's not blue anymore. It's as good as I got with the Strathmore paper when I was testing the journals. I'll be redoing their cut sheet paper as well. That's the Imperial 500. This is absolute pass. Fantastic, beautiful blending. Loved it. Which actually surprised me a bit. I thought it might not do that as well as it did. Now the next one I tested was the Saunders Waterford. And it is I would say a marginal. You did have some hazing of lines, very, very light. This green might have been me on how much water I used and the agitation. But you can still see it's slight haze. Essentially, I would say that a marginal to a marginal pass. Very doable, very workable, very good paper. This is a cold press. The next one I used was Cheap Joe's Kilimanjaro Original. It's a cold press paper here, and it did fairly well. You still had hazing with, similar to what the Saunders, with the sepia in the blue, a little bit with the rose, a little bit with the green. So I'm going to say this is pretty equal in performance to the Saunders Waterford. The texture difference is the Saunders Waterford is a slightly less textured than the Kilimanjaro. That's the big difference. They're both marginal to a marginal pass. Lana Aquarelle is a winner so far. Absolute winner. Alright, next I went to testing paper on the block. As you saw when I was laying down the test swatches, I said right up, it's a absolute failure for direct application and then blending it all out so you don't have any application lines. So this is a definite failure, big time. Okay? Alright, now the final paper I tested was the Fabriano Artistico 100% cotton. It performed beautifully. Now this is the cold press. It performed just as brilliantly as the Lana Aquarelle. Gorgeous. It did even a little bit better on some of the blending out of the lines after 15 minutes. Just a little bit better. So I'm definitely going to have to get some hot press and check out the Fabriano and the hot press. Those are the results for this session of testing the markers on various papers. If If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments. I'll be glad to respond, and I promise, I will respond promptly with all questions. I hope this helps you out, and give those watercolor markers a try. You might discover a new love. I'm discovering I really like them as well. So next time I'm going to be testing another group of papers, and until then, you have a good day. Please subscribe, and thank you for watching.